Unfortunately, at CES 2019, Sony didn't announce any new headphones to complement their 1000 XM3s. I was personally expecting them to announce a new pair of H.ear On 3 headphones and an updated version of their XB950N1 Extra Bass headphones. They did, however, announce that their headphones would now be getting Alexa integration, and like I've been saying for a while now, more and more headphones are going to have voice assistant integration here on out. I mean, just look at how prominent Cortana is on the Surface headphones. But over the last few days, I've been getting a lot of comments about how the new 4.1.1 firmware update has negatively affected the active noise cancellation on the Sony 1000 XM3s. So to get to the bottom of this, I updated my 1000 XM3s to 4.1.1 and did an ANC test with another pair of Sony 1000 XM3s running the previous 2.0.0 firmware. And here's what I got. But first, let's go over what this new firmware update is all about. A lot of Sony's headphones already support Google Assistant if you're running the latest firmware, even the older 1000 XM2. And as voice assistants are maturing and becoming more prominent in our daily lives, Sony's now pushing to add Alexa integration to the headphones as well. So now you can choose which voice assistant you would like to use if you even want it. Because in order to use your voice assistant on your headphones, you have to sacrifice your ambient sound button, meaning that you won't be able to manually toggle between having ANC on or off or ambient mode. You would have to open up the app every single time, which is annoying if you frequently switch between modes, like I do. But if you choose to have a voice assistant in your headphones, as soon as you press and hold this button, you can start talking to your voice assistant like this. Turn on the lights in the studio.
Okay.
Play some music.
Here's a station you might like. J. Cole on Amazon Music.
And personally, I find voice assistant integration is very useful in a pair of headphones. If you're working at home or at the office, you can quickly ask it to do basic math or unit conversions for you, or if you're walking around the city, you can ask it to play a specific song or playlist, or get walking directions to somewhere without having to take your phone out of your pocket. And I find that having a dedicated physical button on your headphones for a voice assistant is more efficient and faster than having to press and hold the touchpad or multimedia button on other headphones, and it's more efficient than having to say, "Hey Cortana," on the Surface headphones. But shortly after the new 4.1.1 firmware update started to roll out, I started to get a few comments about how some owners noticed the active noise cancellation on their 1000 XM3s wasn't performing as well as it used to, and that people's voices were much more audible. There's even a Reddit thread dedicated to the issue, and there's even a few Sony help forums posts as well. So to be as fair and as objective as possible, I performed an ANC test in a controlled environment with a pair of M3s running the 4.1.1 firmware update, a pair of M3s running the 2.0.0 firmware that the majority of people still have, and I also threw in the Surface headphones because I gotta put them to work. Just keep an eye on the lower right corner of your screen. So after performing an ANC test where I was able to keep the ambient sound around me at a constant volume, I can objectively say that there is no difference in performance of the ANC on the 1000 XM3s, whether they're running the 4.1.1 firmware update or 2.0.0 firmware. And subjectively, I can also say the same. I haven't noticed any performance decrease in the ANC on my personal pair of 1000 XM3s. And to avoid any confusion, there's no 3.0 firmware for the 1000 XM3s. Sony just jumped from 2.0.0 to 4.1.1. I mean, Sony is notoriously bad at just naming their products. There are also some people claiming that the microphone audio quality has been improved on the Sony 1000 XM3s from firmware 2.0.0 to firmware 4.1.1. But personally, I don't hear any difference between the microphone on either of these headphones. And if Sony did in fact improve the microphone quality on the 1000 XM3s, I think they would have mentioned it in their changelog. So overall, I think people shouldn't worry about updating to firmware 4.1.1 because contrary to what some people are saying, the ANC hasn't been negatively affected on the 1000 XM3s. But if you just want to be safe, I don't think there's really any need to update to 4.1.1 in general, because there's always the possibility a small portion of users could experience issues when updating their products. It just didn't happen to me. But after using Alexa for a few days on my headphones, I found that she's not as useful as Google Assistant. With Google Assistant, if you press the ambient mode button, she'll tell you the time and any notifications you might have, like this.
It's 1:21 p.m. You don't have new notifications right now.
And Google Assistant also notifies you as notifications come in, and you can interact with them like this.
The comment section. Message from the comment section. The comment section says, when are the Bose QC45 coming out?
And finally, before I wrap this video up, I also wanted to address the cold weather touchpad issue circulating the internet right now. Personally, I never experienced that issue when my 1000 XM3s were running the older firmware, and I still haven't had that issue with my 1000 XM3s running the newer firmware. And if you were hoping that the new firmware update would fix that issue, Sony makes no mention of it in their 4.1.1 changelog either. So again, I really don't feel there's any rush to update to 4.1.1, because like I said earlier, I think Google Assistant is more useful than Alexa. But if you really need to have Alexa in your headphones, I think you're alright updating to 4.1.1, because like I demonstrated earlier in my controlled ANC test, there isn't a drop in performance when it comes to active noise cancellation. If you made it this far, I guess you enjoyed the video, so hit that like button and get subscribed. It helps out more than you realize. If you want to pick any of the products up mentioned in this video, those will be linked in the description down below, and you can also support the channel by checking out the merch store. But other than that, I'll catch you next time.